Welcome to DAO Talk Interviews, a weekly podcast series that sits down with the IRL voices behind the online usernames of the leaders in the budding DAO ecosystem. Each week, we'll dive deep with an individual or individuals on what they're working on, what brought them into the DAO space, and so much more. Hosted by me, Tommy, and sometimes my friends, Frisian, Cool Horse Girl, Caden, and Ellie. Each episode is brought to you and powered by Tally.xyz, the home of DAO governance. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of DAO Talk Interviews. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first real DAO Talk interview in a minute. We've been doing the Tally Protocol series for a couple weeks. That wrapped up with Ben from Scopelift last week, and then this week we're joined by, I think maybe our third repeat interviewer or interviewee for the DAO Talk interviews. He's been on before, or he wasn't the Tally intern, but now he is the Tally intern. So Chase, welcome back to the pod. Good to have you, man.
What's up? Good to be here.
Yeah, for the people who maybe don't know who you are, and if you don't know who Chase is, what are you doing? Go listen to the. We'll link the episode back from when he did that. That was probably a year ago, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, good.
Yeah, something like
that. Tell people what you've been up to, who you are. Tell people who you are first, and then we'll get into what you've been up to, how you got into your Tally internship, and what you've been doing in that role, so people can get a little outside look into the Tally team. But yeah, who are you, Chase? Who are you?
Cool. My name is Chase. I'm currently a student at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. Blockchain enthusiast, DAO enthusiast, governance enthusiast, intern at Tally. Last year, I was interviewed because I was leading our delegation team at my club, at the Blockchain Club at University of Southern California. This upcoming year, I'll be president of the Blockchain Club. That's kind of a little summary of the type of stuff I'm interested in and, what I have going on.
Yeah, I'd say if anyone wants to dive deeper into the Blockchain Club at USC and what Chase is into, we interviewed him pretty deeply on what he does there and what that looks like. So go listen to that one. For sure. We'll link that in the show notes right now. It's a good interview. But yeah, let's talk about how you ended up, interning with Tally. What was that process like? I'm not super privy to that because I just remember one day hearing oh, Chase is our intern. I'm like, fuck yeah, I love Chase. This is going to be great. So I'm interested as well. How'd you end up, joining the team? It's been great having you, but yeah, I want to know the story.
Yeah. So, as you know, met Frisian last year. Met him IRL last year. I think I'd seen him around in my Twitter sphere, which is kind of how I knew him when I met him. At ETH Denver, kept that connection going. Did the podcast, and just kind of like I do with all the people, all the crypto friends, just try to reach out every now and then, especially people in governance. So that was last year. And then last summer, I wasn't at Tally, but I was still working kind of in the Web3 governance space over the summer. And then knew I wanted to be in the same space again, but be doing software engineering. So I was talking with a lot of different people within the governance space, kind of figuring out, what type of career opportunities there are within the governance space and what that looks like. And then the semester before this summer, hit up Frisian and was like, hey, Tally, what's it looking like as far as, you need a guy? Cause I am a guy, and he put me in touch with Raph and, who I'd already talked to actually, just in kind of doing more research on the governance space and what it looks like and where the opportunity is there to kind of make a career. And then did some, engineering interview stuff, and thankfully they decided I was competent. So now here I am.
Oh yeah, dude. It's been that's a pretty awesome story. I think people should be encouraged to like, hey, if there's something you want and there's a team you like, whether it's Tally or someone else, build that relationship and then, work your way in, kind of prove like I said, like I wasn't in that process, but I knew you were capable and I was super excited when you joined. So again, like I would say go listen to the episode with Chase from like a year ago and kind of like see what he was talking about and how he thinks about, being a student and also like pursuing a career in the space and how you can kind of parlay that into something bigger. So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about like what's been your favorite part about working at Tally so far. Um, like what has the internship been like? What have you like? Let's start with positives. We'll do negatives too because there's always some negatives. But yeah, like what are you working on? Let's start there. What are you working on, particularly within Tally? And what have you loved about working with the team, or just working? Like what part? Like what really energizes you about working on DAOs, not just particularly with Tally? I know it's a loaded question, but
Yeah, well, we'll dive in. um, Tally, I am on the front end team. I'm doing front end software engineering, working on a project called Unistaker, which I'm sure you all have talked about on this podcast before. Um, so I'm basically making the front end interface for Unistaker. So all of you people with Uni out there who are, excited to get some utility out of it, once that proposal or if that proposal passes, um, you'll be able to stake through Tally. That's basically what I've been working on. And it's been really cool. I'd say like probably one of the best parts of working at Tally has been the fact that like I'm working on kind of this end to end project with both some importance to the ecosystem and also a lot of importance to Tally itself. Um, I think like, a lot of the stereotypical internship is like, go run me this coffee or whatever, which kind of, in the places I've worked so far, like it hasn't been that bad as far as just having me do useless tasks or things like that, especially in engineering. But, this has definitely been the most interesting project I've gotten to work on within an internship. And I think like that's a huge advantage to working at a place like Tally, which is both small but also very structured, with really good leadership. So like, you know, frankly, they can't afford to pay me without like me working on something that actually matters, I'm assuming. But also they are organized enough to like really create something thoughtful and something where both Tally and I get something out of the experience. So that's definitely been the best part about working at Tally.
yeah, absolutely. I want to dive a little deeper into like what the process has been like building out the front end for Unistaker, not only from like an intern's perspective, but just in general. We talked about Unistaker, I think in every episode of the protocol series we did over the past 3 weeks, which we'll link below too. If you're not familiar with what Unistaker is, we don't have to dive too deep into what that is, but um, yeah, like it's a pretty like revolutionary, like cutting edge project in and of itself. So like, what has it been like from like working hands on with like our front end leads and the engineering team, and what would you say you've gained the most experience from, or like what did you go into it, like what were your expectations going into it, and how have those expectations maybe not been exceeded, but like just been different than what you thought?
So really going into the internship, like I had no idea what the project I would be working on. I think actually neither did Raf, who is our glorious CTO. Um, I don't think he had knew exactly what I'd be working on until like either right before or right as I got there. I think like actually what they thought I was going to be working on switched from something else to Unistaker, right when I got there, which was cool because like Unistaker wasn't really super scoped out of a project before I got there, so I kind of got to be a part of like the whole life cycle of that feature. Um, which as is one thing to code something, um, and just like, oh, here, this thing is broken, or, add this feature or whatever. But it's another thing to kind of like try to integrate a new product feature from zero to like something that's actually functional. And that's like uses a lot of different skills in and of itself of just kind of, interacting with the design team and like trying to figure out the project scope and trying to figure out project timeline and, things like that. Um, so I think that's been a big part. I think also, um, a big part has been, I don't really know what I was expecting, but I've worked in like front end stuff before. Like I've done personal projects. So I think I felt pretty confident with my ability to kind of jump in. Um, and yeah, I think probably the biggest surprise is just how much trust I've gotten. Like it's really just, okay, here's my code. Someone reviews it. Um, but there's no like micromanage. Like most of my stuff goes through without too many edits. Um, and I think that's just a testament to like I'm really being treated like I'm just part of the team at Tally. So I think that's a satisfying feeling. Um, and as far as just the technical aspect of Unisticker itself, like before working on the interface, like obviously I'm not working on the smart contract stuff or anything like that, but you have to kind of have some understanding of it in order to be able to properly create that interface. Um, so that's been cool too, to kind of just having had to figure out how the Unisticker stuff is working and like just something I'm personally like interested in is the Tally protocol and how that will you know work out and integrate with Unisticker and things like that. So it's been cool to kind of be working on something that's adjacent to a big effort at Tally that's also pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's something I recognize too within Tally. Is like it comes down to, and I see it in other startups as well. Like it really comes down to like hiring correctly, because like you said, like I think resources is a better term than just money, because it is like you can't pay someone to do something that's not important, especially in startup world. But also like I think the more important thing in startup land is time and resources in that way. And like hiring correctly allows us and allows the team to do what you just said, which is, hey, we know this person, this employee is capable, and we trust them. And you see that like happening with you. Like if it's happening on the intern level, it's happening on the entire organizational level, where everyone's kick ass, and if you get that right in the beginning, the organization is going to flourish, right? Um, which seems obvious, but I think the more, especially within the DAO space, which are, basically just a bunch of startups that are trying to, find PMF and function as a business, it comes down to hiring and finding the right talent. So I'll say, I said it in the beginning, but you exceeded my expectations, and I had high expectations for you, working with Tally. So super exciting. But what are you going to take back to school? Is this you're going into your last year? You have 2 more years or what? Last year?
Going into my last year, yeah.
How is this, and maybe it hasn't, but how is, what are you taking back to your final year in school, and what are you taking back to like the blockchain club, and are there any changes you're going to make? Any like really good insights? How are you going to, you know, take that to the next level, and, how are you viewing your last year in school as you, finish up and transition into the next phase of life?
I'd say in terms of the blockchain club, I think I mean like specifically in relation to Tally, it's Tally is definitely proof like there are really cool, interesting places within crypto um, that you can find an internship with if you're okay with networking and like leaning on some of those relationships. Like I think blockchain and crypto is just a very relationship heavy industry, which in many ways, like to me personally, like I'd rather talk to like 10 different people in a space that I'm interested in, than like grind lead code for weeks on end to try and um, land some big tech internship. And for those listening that don't know what lead code is, it's like uh, these like coding challenge things that tend to be the filtration process used by a lot of um, large tech companies or even like really prominent startups to like use that. Um, and to me, that stuff is a pain. Um, so like, I'd rather like be able to show my portfolio and having talked to people and people kind of based on our relationships or the relationship I have with some mutual people, like make my way in my career through those means as opposed to like, the leak code thing. And it's possible, you know what I mean? Like definitely, when you're, in any industry that's kind of like a crypto industry where it's uncertain and, like not as much stability or even as much name recognition, you're definitely gonna have people who are like, are you sure? Or even like, not even haters per se, but just like reasonable people, like with different levels of risk tolerance, um, who rightfully so might kind of question if that's the best path. Um, but it's definitely possible to find a space here as a young person, as an intern, as a, you know, getting into the space. And I think that's like the big thing is because as students, like, it's good to get experience. So you can get valuable experience within the crypto industry. And I think that's like something that I believed intuitively, but didn't have personal proof for. Um, and now I do. So I think that's something that I'll definitely take to the club. Um, but what I will say to like just other stuff that's probably like less related to Tally. I think blockchain at USC in particular is in a really favorable spot because there's a lot of resources and attention on blockchain stuff at USC. Um, the in particular like the digital Van Eck initiative, um, that's kind of in partnership with USC's business school, and thus like we have a relationship with them as well. And also just like a lot of USC alum are just kind of doing really cool things. Um, so we're in a really like good spot as far as the type of resources we can call on. And also like every year USC gets like really cool, interesting people, many of whom are already interested in blockchain stuff. So it's just about harnessing that. So that's kind of like the big thing for me is like creating a really sustainable structure with which, um, to harness all of these different, resources, talent, connections, um, etc. So that's what I'm really excited about for blockchain at USC.
I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah, I think that's super important. I was talking to someone the other day about college and just like you're expected to have 4 or 5 years of experience coming out of college. So like even just having a little bit goes a long way. And that's how I prefer to think about hiring too is like, show me what you've done, and show me like how you've taken initiative and like proven yourself. I don't really care if you can pass a test or not. I think that's a much better indicator of, success and being able to work with a team and actually produce. So yeah, I think that's super important, especially for, I guess what I would tell, my alumni going back and like talking to like tech clubs and blockchain clubs, I'd say the same thing. So super cool. I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see it. I'm sure we'll interview you again in another year, make it a yearly thing to see, how is it going back at USC Blockchain Club? But I want to ask some fun questions. Who is your favorite employee at Tally?
Favorite employee at
No
Tally?
wrong answers. Don't get political. Your actual favorite.
My actual favorite.
And obviously you haven't like interacted with everyone, so it's going to be a little biased. But
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like I interact with Nico the most, and also he's the guy who reviews my code, and he's like my most kind of one-on-one direct
Yeah.
employee. And also like Nico's cool, man. Like every time like we'll hop in the meeting, just be like, oh, have you seen the Olympics? Like, are you watching soccer? Um, which is funny. And I still haven't hopped on the soccer wave. I need to. For you, Nico, I'll watch some soccer. Um, I'd say number two, CHG was really funny. It's funny because I talked to Jasmine before I talked to CHG, and Jasmine had already like gone through a bunch of like one-on-one talks with everybody,
hmm
kind of as her initial thing she did before getting into heavy into her product work. And she was like, yeah, like on the call with CHG, like we just literally, I got to none of the questions that I had prepared. Like we just talked about, some bar story or something like that. And then when I hopped on a call with CHG, it was like the same thing. We talked about literally nothing tally, blockchain, or crypto related. It was just random thought bubbles,
Yeah.
um, which was fun. Um, CHG also had me like guess people's ages in the company.
Yeah.
I was like completely
Yep.
off.
That's our favorite game. I never get it right. But yeah, I love it. Those are good answers. All right, what are you most excited for in the DAO space moving forward? And you can get like a hot take too. I know you've asked me that before. It's my biggest DAO hot take. But what are you excited for, and what's your biggest hot take to wrap this thing up?
Um, I mean, not to be biased, but I'm excited about the Tally protocol. Like I'm excited to see how that shapes out. Also just like being internal to Tally, like it's cool. Like I'm interested in like can geek out about like mechanism design stuff and protocol design stuff, and especially for like governance incentives. And so it's cool that Tally is kind of jumping into that space of having to design their own or try to modify the incentives in some way as opposed to being the interface for other people's designed incentives. um and also I think like just in general the the DAO space is long overdue for some type of major shift, as far as like some type of major innovation shift is for the incentives. um Hot take though, I mean, I think this was the same hot take or quote unquote take that I think I probably gave last time. Um, but like for most DAOs, at least for the goal of most DAOs that are around today, the big ones, like token governance it's just not going to cut it. Um, and I think the big issue is, um, especially for DAOs that are supposed to be managing some form of systemic or public infrastructure. Um, and like, for example, optimism. Like, if their goal is really to be the super chain and to be the L2 destination for Ethereum and to really take that over and like they achieve it, then like every transaction that is Ethereum related will be affected by, any type of change that happens on OP's network. Um, and so when you kind of have that sort of outsized impact by any type of change, then I think a rough rule of thumb is that the people who are going to be impacted by your changes should be, you should be somewhat accountable to them for those changes. And token governance, the proportions are way off. Like you're mainly accountable to people who are willing to invest substantial amounts of capital into the protocol, as opposed to um, the actual users and people affected by the protocol. And it's the interests of those two groups are pretty different, in my opinion. And so, one isn't a good representation of the other. So I think like we need a shift for sure. And also most people or most energy in the DAO space like isn't really geared towards creating momentum for that shift. So that's my big governance take.
I like it. I like that. Maybe that would be a hot take a couple years ago or a year ago, but it's becoming, not that that's a bad take, just like it's becoming normalized, right? Like that conversation's being had.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and we're making, hopefully making strides in that direction to fix that. But I love it. Any closing thoughts for the people who, are interested in what's the life of a Tally intern like, or you have the mic, anything you want to shell before we go?
Nothing to share. I'll say, I mean, for the younger audience, even if you're not, for the people who are trying to break into something new or something that like, is a little smaller or niche, like the crypto industry, talk to a bunch of people and then ask if they have space for you. Which, this the advice you'll get 1,000 times over from people in interesting places, I feel like, but it's true. And then as far as just other stuff, like, I mean, I'm sure Tommy will put my Twitter and stuff in the show notes. Follow me on Twitter. I'm not really posting that much, but if you have stuff that you're interested in, like governance or mechanism design or any of that type of stuff, please send it to me. Like I like talking about that stuff and I like thinking about that stuff. Right now I'm particularly interested in like the whole nation state, type of thing. Not to say that I haven't even read the network state. I haven't even read the network state stuff from Balaji. And I know like his particular version of it is controversial, but I just mean more broadly, like the idea of creating internet communities that have more stake than just like, oh, we come here to talk, like they have some type of, gated citizenship and some type of benefit and maybe even some type of tie to the real world. All that stuff is super interesting to me because I feel like governance in its most complex and difficult form is like governance of nations.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to deal with like land and, law and nation identity and nation culture. And like you have to deal with all the questions. So that's like something that's been interesting to me recently that I'm trying to learn more about.
Love it, dude. Love it. Well, man, it's been awesome having you on the team, and hopefully we get to work together again soon. But I'm sure even if you're not directly working with us, we'll be collabing in the future. But everyone, definitely go follow Chase, follow USC Blockchain Club. Is that the way to say it, USC Blockchain Club, or is it the other way around?
It's blockchain at USC. We might be changing it to blockchain at SC, but blockchain at USC. We'll go with that for now.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the only blockchain club at the University of Southern California. So we're hard to miss.
Cool. Sounds good, man. We'll link all the info in the show notes. Go check out the Protocol Pod. Check out Chase's episode from, months ago. And we'll see you in the future, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Peace.